So this is the picture that waited for me when I returned to my car a few nights ago. Not a very pleasant thing to come back to, but that's life. I made the mistake of parking the car outside of a locked garage, I suppose. But no, I parked on a street where it was too dark. There was no street lighting. And you subscribers may remember I just upgraded my dash cam to one that included a parking mode, and it actually captured the two particular losers in question. But because it was so dark, the picture was unusable, and the police have already told me that they've given up. There's not much they can do. So it's up to me to replace this quarter glass, and I suppose it gives me an excuse to make a video, which hopefully will be helpful for you. So I've already got the new glass. It's here. I got this from a wrecker's. What you'll find with quarter glass is that it's really, really overpriced because it tends to be in high demand, so the price goes up. But when you get the glass, it comes, it's not just the glass, you get the whole sort of assembly. It has the rubber and plastic trim around the outside. And it's just going to be a case of unbolting and removing the old one and replacing the new one. And to do that, we need to get into the door card, get into the door internals, but it's not going to be an especially complicated job, I hope. So let's get on with it. Just by way of preparation, the workshop manual instructs to lower the window so as to make a gap 16 centimeters open. This is just to put the window glass at the bottom in about the right position before you start. It doesn't need to be exactly accurate, and you can always adjust it later, of course. I should say there are anecdotes out there of people replacing the quarter glass without doing what I'm going to show you, but I can't imagine it was easy, and the proper way is to get the window frame loose, and I really think this is the smarter way, so watch on. The door card is held in place with these posi head screws. On the rear doors there are four, two front and back, around the edges of the plastic shell. They came out easily enough. Then there are a few other attachments, one inside the door release handle. If you look carefully, there is a plastic cover which is easily picked out like so. And then there is a T25 Torx screw to take out. This screw holds the handle frame in and the door card itself, so once it's out then the handle frame can be taken away. I make a habit, by the way, of putting screws like this with the items they go with, so as not to mix them up. Next is the pull handle. There is a screw underneath the plastic insert which just unclips at the top by pushing it in with a plastic tool. I'd suggest not jamming a screwdriver in here because you'll damage the finish, which from the factory is a sort of soft rubberized coating. And then the screw inside is another posi drive. Take that out, and then the card will be loose of the door. You can just pull it out from the bottom, then it will lift out of the sill at the top. The one thing retaining it is the electric window control, which is a bit awkward to see from behind. If you can't figure out the clip, it might be easier to just squeeze the two clips of the switch itself where it mounts on the handle and push it through to the other side of the door card, where it's then easy to see the clip and disconnect it, and then the cable can go back and the switch put back in. Then the card is free. Finally, there is this bracket for the pull handle, which is screwed to the actual door frame over top of this foam seal, which is a kind of mix of waterproofing, sound dampening, and I think acoustic sealing for the speaker. In theory, you take the bracket off, but in my case it was so glued to the old foam that I would have destroyed it to do so, so I just left it stuck on there. Right, then the job gets a bit messy because you have to unstick this foam from the door frame, and it's held in place with the stickiest substance I've ever seen. This stuff is incredible, and actually, if anyone knows where you can buy it in a usable form, I'd like to know. It's probably illegal for home use though. It's this black goo that's like a silicone sealant that never quite dries, so it retains its adhesive nature, and it seals the foam sheet to the metal. So you just need to pull it apart, and later it can simply be restuck. but it does hold quite well. And as I mentioned, my foam is very old and it's starting to disintegrate. So it's very much a test of patience to go around and do this slowly and carefully. You can use a blade in some areas where it's thicker. That does help. And you do only need to do the rear half of the door. You only need to be able to access these two ports in the frame. Right, the point of all this is to access the lower part of the window glass, and all I'm doing is unclipping it from the regulator bracket that slides it up and down. It's very hard to see, but you can reach it by hand. This is why the window was positioned 16 centimeters down, by the way. So in this mirror here, you can make it out, see the white clip. It just prevents the glass from coming free of the regulator. And the way you release it is by pulling the outside clip outward. It takes a bit of force and a strong thumb, but it can be done. And then once it goes, you can lift the glass away. So here's a close-up of that clip showing what I mean. If you look carefully, you can see the hole in the glass, which I've lifted up now, and the clip below. Then what you do is lift the glass until it clears the whole regulator and push the bottom of it outside of it. And you then pull the glass down until it's free, and you can lower it to the bottom of the door and just let it sit there. Now, obviously one needs to be careful because it is glass that you're dealing with, but it's not as tricky as you might think. All of this means that the glass is out of the way up at the top. So this means you can do a number of things, of course, including replacing the quarter glass. First steps in that job are taking off these plastic covers, the pear-shaped one at the back and the boomerang at the top. This exposes some more Torx screws. There's one at the top of the vertical jamb, or stile, or whatever you'd call it, and another at the top of the pear. With them taken out, there's a third at the base of the stile, and with that out, the quarter glass assembly is now mechanically loose. Now the rubber seal for the main glass can be pulled away like so. No need to remove it completely, as you just need the rear section out of the way. But I also did pull up the lower seals at some point. Now the quarter glass is loose and it will pull forward, but it's still attached to the stile, that's what I'm calling it, which in turn is at this point still trapped in the door. So this initially confused me a little, and I was also keen to get the broken glass away from the car as quickly as possible. So I promptly made the broken glass situation worse by pulling the whole thing out of the stile, like slowly pulling a plaster off your skin. So because the glass is broken here, the whole frame is floppy, whereas if the glass is present, then it's meant to slide into the stile, as you'll see soon. Anyway, if you're dealing like me with broken glass, then you should also have decent gloves on. And really do as I say, not as I do, I know. And a vacuum cleaner handy as well to clean up all the bits of broken glass that will now be carpeting the ground. And now's also the time to have a good cleanup of the general area. Certainly get rid of all the traces of remaining glass, but there will also be years worth of crud under the rubber seals that you can now get rid of. If you lift away the main glass lower seals, you can maneuver out this stile like so, and this is what I should have done to start with, but oh well. Now, with it out, the replacement quarter glass can be put on the stile first, and I noticed when looking that a lot of wreckers will give you this as a complete unit. So you may have been wondering why mine looked different. The way this works, if you need to rejoin them, is the rubber on the quarter glass fits into the channel on the stile, and it needs to go in from the bottom, and it will simply slide along and lock into place with a perfect seal. This is why trying to remove then rejoin these two parts with the main glass and the stile still bolted in place is a bit silly, frankly, despite people saying that they did just that. I figure I might have been able to do it, but it would have been horribly awkward, and I don't know that you could guarantee the seal was right. So anyway, the glass as an assembly then just goes back in as you'd expect, with the stile inserted down into the door frame and the quarter glass pushed backward into position. And the main sill seals will sort of lock it into place, and locate the little tab on the quarter glass seal. Same goes with the upper seal. It's just it's easy to just push it back into place by hand, and already everything's looking pretty good. Once the seals are properly positioned, those screws can go back in to fix the quarter glass assembly, all three of them. And when you do this, it will have the effect of tightening up most of the seals, pulling them against the door body. Once the screws are tight, the plastic covers can go back on. Now's as good a time as any. They just push home like so. And then the window glass wants to go home. I just lifted it out of the door base, and it sort of guided itself with a little help from me into the sill opening. It wasn't too difficult, and then you can grab it from the top and pull it up until the bottom was above the regulator, and then you just push or pull it down again into the clip. And despite my reaction here, just watch your fingers, it's not that dangerous, and it will simply clip itself back into place with a bit of a snap. Then I tested the window lowering and raising at this point, obviously to make sure it was in fact correctly located, but also because raising the window and closing it completely here will again have the effect of pushing that window rubber back into wherever it wants to be. So that all looks weatherproof to me, so good. And the rest is just a reversal of before. The foam seal will just stick itself back to the sealant, magical stuff that it is, like I discussed before. I just pushed it all back together at the edges with my fingers. Then the two posi drive screws for the pull handle bracket, and then the window switch connector, don't forget that, or your passengers will think that you broke the electric window. And then finally the door card goes back on. It hooks onto the sill at the top, make sure that that lines up correctly, and then it can be pushed in at the bottom. I did the pull handle screw first, another posi screw, and of course its plastic cover can go on at the same time. Next, the release handle frame, which just clips back around the handle, and it's one of the Torx screws this time. When that's tight, the little plastic cover just pushes home. And all that remains are the 4 screws around the edge of the door card. Simple enough, don't over tighten them, they don't really do anything other than hold the lip of the card secure. And then if you're anything like me, you'll have made a bit of a mess if you've used any silicone lubricant or anything. My quarter glass from the wreckers was coated in something strange, maybe silicone spray. And then some diluted isopropyl alcohol is a good solution to clean that sort of stuff off. Right, that's about it for this video. One thing I'll just mention in passing, when you replace the quarter glass, when you get any new glass for your car, often there are different tints available. And in my case, this is called a tint level 3, the quarter glass, whereas my original glass was tint level 2. And the difference is visible if you look closely, but it's close enough that I don't really care. But if it was a big difference, then that might be something that you would want to pay attention to, because otherwise you're going to have mismatched glass. And then it's just a case of giving everything a bit of a clean. The other thing that you might have an issue with is depending on the age of your original rubber and the rubber that you get to replace it, the glass that you get to replace it, the rubber may look different. And if you care about that, then you might want to get some rubber treatment, some paint type stuff. You can buy that from auto stores, and treat all of the rubber, and that will disguise the difference. Otherwise, that's it. Not a video I was planning on making, this one, but as I said before, sort of lemonade from lemons, as they say. So I hope that was helpful. Have fun.